Welcome back to the daily wrap up on C Today, broadcasting from home. The Russian military aggression to Ukraine is now entering its second day. Around 100,000 civilians have fled in the wake of the Russian offensive, while the number of victims continues to rise. Although international criticism and sanctions were aimed at Russia, President Vladimir Putin continues the invasion. Unfortunately, this leads to consequences that can be felt globally, such as soaring prices in various commodities. Even the price of US crude oil has increased at around 4.36%. This means that the price of the US crude oil in Asia has soared to 96.12 US dollars per barrel. Meanwhile, the price of gold has just climbed to 1.64%, affecting the stock exchange in the Asia Pacific region. Now, Indonesia and also our Southeast Asia neighbors are also feeling the impact of the Russian invasion. Now, to find out more about this, we are now connected with Lab 45 policy analyst Indah Lestari. Hi, Mbak Indah.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Mbak Indah, all of this is unraveling very quick. It's been 2 days now. It seems that the Russian troops have entered even the capital city. This conflict has been brewing for the past few weeks. What is the final trigger of the Russian invasion?
Okay, first of all, one of the main reasons behind Ukraine-Russia conflict is the expansion of NATO. NATO is a military alliance consisting of North American and European countries, which mean it possesses an American or Western influence. The current regime of Ukraine tends to join NATO. However, Russia does not want Ukraine to join NATO because Ukraine, which follows directly with Russia, makes it strategic buffer zone between Russia and Western enemy. If Ukraine joins NATO, Russia believes that Ukraine is becoming westernized and turning into its enemy. So Russia demands Ukraine never join NATO. Russia continues to mass troops on the Ukrainian border, threatening an invasion if Ukraine join NATO. As of now, we don't have certain answer of whether Ukraine still want to join NATO or if Russia will continue adding more troops to give more pressure, or if NATO helps Ukraine to face Russian power, so that Lab 45 specifically maps out 4 possible scenarios on the development of this conflict. Starting from the best scenario, Ukraine decides to take neutral position where it does not join NATO and remains as buffer zone for Russia and the Western alliance. Second scenario, diplomatic stalemate, a condition where both sides are equally holding back. The third scenario, proxy conflicts, when an escalation occurs, especially between local pro-Russian rebels and the pro-NATO regime. And the worst case scenario, an open military conflict between NATO and Russia in Ukraine that leads to full-scale war or even World War III. So we made this research based on the development of conflict during the last few weeks. At that time, we conclude the situation remains a diplomatic stalemate. However, as of the conflict development in the past 48 hours, it is now already leading to third scenario, proxy conflict.
All right. It seems like the fourth scenario that you're talking about, an all-out war, that's also still brewing, and it's apparent right now in Ukraine. So, Maina, can you tell us the comparison of the military strength between Ukraine and Russia right now? It doesn't seem like Ukraine is defending itself very well.
Okay. If we compare Russia and Ukraine apple to apple, obviously Russia has larger and stronger military capability compared to Ukraine. Not to mention, Russia has nuclear capability. But in this case, NATO and US could help Ukraine. However, NATO is bound by Article 4. They need to consult between members on what action to take regarding the conflict. On the other hand, we cannot rely on US military involvement, as President Joe Biden only responded with words of condemnation and economic sanctions. Specifically said, we have no intention of fighting Russia.
Right. So it seems like the Western countries, it's quite hard for them to put boots in the ground. So that's why the Russians are just rolling in. Looking at the stark difference in military strength, how is this going to affect the duration of the conflict right now?
Okay. Can you pardon me? Can you?
Yes, Maina. So looking at the strength of the two countries are very different. How is it going to affect the duration of the war? Is it going to be a short one, or is it going to be an all-out long one, Linda?
Okay. Actually, despite the escalation, we noted that possibility of the conflict escalate into open war between NATO and Russia is relatively small. Actually, yeah, it is true that President Vladimir Putin has declared a specific military operation in Donbass. But note that Donbass itself is a region directly borders with Russia and already filled with a lot of separatists or pro-Russian troops to begin with. So unless Russian troops move forward and present in Kiev, for example, this conflict tend to only become local war. In addition, there is a tendency for NATO countries to refrain from being directly involved in the Ukraine conflict. So in conclusion, proxy conflict is likely to happen, as we can see from Russian offensive act combined with NATO and US response mentioned before. However, it's not heading to World War III.
All right. Mainda, obviously the whole world is paying attention to this right now. How is this conflict going to affect or change global order?
Okay. So actually, we don't see if it will change the global order. As mentioned before, because this conflict itself is tend to be just a local war. It's like I said before, unless there is like an open war between NATO and Russia, which is relatively it's in small scale.
All right. So we're looking at a small scale, although the pictures right now are looking quite terrifying in the area right now. Now we're going to talk about the effects this is going to have on us here in Asia. From your research, how is this going to impact countries in Southeast Asia like us?
Okay. Actually, the armed conflict in Ukraine can create turbulence in the global energy supply. It relates to the vital position of Russia, of course, as one of the largest oil and gas producers. And for example, for Indonesia, although Indonesia does not have dependency on Russia's oil and gas supply, the perception of uncertainty caused by the main actors might influence the price of energy commodities. In this point, for the countries like Indonesia, which relies on imports to fulfill a portion of its energy needs, will affect it. Furthermore, a sanction that nullifies Russia's access to international payment network, SWIFT, might create global financial shock. Its shockwaves will threaten the volatility of Russia. The end.
All right. Okay, Maina, a very in-depth explanation there. We're still going to talk a lot more about the global impacts on economy of this Ukraine and Russia conflict. So we're going to come right to you after the break, and we're going to continue this discussion. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the daily wrap up, and now we're still connected to Indah Lestari from Lab 45, and we're talking about how the Ukraine and Russia conflict is going to affect globally in an economic way. So, Indah, we've touched on how we here in East Asia, especially, we don't have that much of a close-knit trade or relationship with Ukraine or Russia. But here in Indonesia itself, how is it going to directly impact us, the whole conflict?
Okay, thank you. Taking into account the potential increase in global crude oil price and depression of rupiah to US dollars, Lab 45 actually have created a simulation for each potential scenario that I've mentioned before. So in a scenario of a stalemate and proxy war between NATO and Russia, the conflict should have limited effect to Indonesia economy as OPEC member of countries adjust the production capacity. However, there is a risk of higher global crude oil price in the long run. Based on Lab 45 simulations, proxy war scenario will increase the crude oil price to 100 US dollar per barrel, as it already happened yesterday actually, due to the very early stage of the proxy war. Now the countries still have not implemented the economic sanction, which include excluding Russia from the SWIFT network. Therefore, the exchange rate of rupiahs to US dollar is still relatively stable. In our calculation, actually, when the proxy war is fully enforced, Indonesia fuel subsidy budget in 2022 might almost be doubled.
All right. And, just to give us a picture of the trade relations between Indonesia and also Ukraine and Russia, how dependent are we to these countries, or maybe not at all?
Actually, related to the trade, I don't think that we have that close of relations to the Russia. If we have to say, it is more to Ukraine, because Ukraine is the second largest wheat exporter to us. So yeah,
Right.
because so we have to pay attention to this condition.
That's right.
And it might be like the next nightmare for us, because currently we are facing like the scarcity of the cooking oil and soybean, and what's next? I cannot imagine if we will face the scarcity of wheat in the near future.
All right. So right now, of course, what we can see is that it's already affecting prices to go up. How long do you think the prices will remain high, and what policies and steps can be taken to normalize them again?
For how long the price will remain high, it is depend on three things. First and foremost is the reconciliation progress between Ukraine. Second, how the OPEC member will adjust their oil production. Finally, whether NATO alliance will be eliminating Russia from SWIFT network or not. If so, the financial sector turbulence because of the sanction will surely hamper the demand for oil and eventually decreasing its price. Policymakers in this case should focus on what they can control. For countries who have close tie with Ukraine and Russia, policymakers must pursue agreement for peace. Another key policy to lower the oil price is on the hand of OPEC, as biggest oil producer, and countries like US and China has massive oil reserve. Policymakers in these countries should increase production and release their reserves.
All right. So, Lab 45 has also estimated that this conflict can have a direct snowball effect to Indonesia. Can you explain more about the snowball effect?
Okay. As an example, a portion of Indonesian electricity is generated from fossil fuel power plant, right? Therefore, the rise of crude oil price will be followed by an increase of electricity price. On the other hand, an increase in natural gas price, which are used to create fertilizer, will affect the price of fertilizer and food. And all of this will then lead to higher inflation rate.
Right. That certainly is a lot of things that is going to affect us. In what duration do you think this snowball effect is going to take effect? Are we counting in weeks, or is it going to still be months? What does your research say?
Actually, it's going to depend on the situation in the Ukraine itself. Yeah, just like we discussed before, so we are still watching what's happening currently. Yeah, the situation is developing rapidly. Like even at this rate, that in this hour, we never know what will happen. Like in the future, like.
Right. It seems like anything can happen in the coming days. Now, also, what's going to my question is what's going to affect us here in Indonesia is that we have a neighboring superpower itself, like China. Now, the way that China is reacting to this situation in Ukraine and Russia, how does their reaction going to affect us here, in Indonesia?
Actually, we can say if we can say if Russia has close enough ties with China itself, and Indonesia also, like we are in a natural position. We have
Right.
like a very tight relation both with like China and also US.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, if just like I said before, actually
Mm-hmm.
we are aware that the situation is developing so rapidly, and uh, so uh, I can say if it's quite sensitive and to like
Right.
to comment further on it. So
Right.
I just think like I just what I can say is only for Indonesia. I just can see if we still can take like a neutral in neutral position. So it's hard for Indonesia to take like one side.
Right. Okay. So, looking at the rapidly developing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, what country or what factors do you think can put a quick end to the invasion that is happening right now?
Okay, so the answer is Russia is the only one can put an end to this invasion. So
Mm,
Russia has to be the one who stop making offensive moves. Like what Ukraine can do is at least to declare that it will not join NATO in maybe like 10 or 20 years, and better to
mm,
declare that it will be a non-aligned country. I think for
mm,
now, if other countries or NATO or EU or even like UN interfere or worse, sending military assistance to Ukraine, it can actually even worsen the situation.
mhm.
This is not to put an end to the invasion, but at the very least, what other country can do is to provide humanitarian assistance.
Right, right, right. So, does the Western power have more grit or more effect that they can, or more action that they can do to make this conflict end more quickly, Maida?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yes, Maida. So, Western countries, NATO countries, including the U.S. itself, can they not be? Can do they not have more action that they can do to make this conflict end quickly? So the ball here is only in Russia then.
Yeah. From what, as far as we can see, because it's so sensitive, like Ukraine is
Mm,
really has like the very direct borders. So we can see like the very big intention for Russia to take Ukraine back, right? And just
mm.
like we discussed before, like it's like only Russia is the only one can put the end of this invasion.
All right, very interesting discussion that we have with Ina on how the Ukraine-Russia conflict is going to affect us globally. Thankfully, here in Indonesia, based on your research, we are not going to feel it, a direct effect of it. However, we might have a snowball effect on commodities that is going to take place in the days of who knows when, depending on how rapid developing this conflict is. Thank you very much, Mbak Ina Lestari from Lab 45, for your information, and stay safe.